James Island IHOP is now permanently closed following inspections that showed several health code violations.
Have you ever cut into a stack of pancakes and wondered why they felt more like sponge than batter? There was a time when diner pancakes were thick, golden, and smelled like something worth getting out of bed for. But what if the breakfasts we trusted most have quietly turned into something else entirely? Today at the Hidden Menu, we take a deep dive into what might really be hiding under the syrup. So let us start with 1. IHOP. IHOP used to feel like the standard. Stacks of pancakes taller than the plate, a dozen syrups on the table, whipped butter sliding down the sides before your fork even touched it. For a lot of people, it was breakfast as a memory, after church, after prom, during long drives and early mornings. But the pancakes you're getting today aren't quite what they used to be. The batter has changed. Former cooks have said that IHOP's mix is no longer made fresh in most locations. It's pre-portioned, delivered in sealed bags or jugs, and poured out onto the grill in measured amounts. That means faster service, fewer mistakes, and less room for flavor. The original recipe, once known for buttermilk richness and a hint of tang, is now flatter, sweeter, and noticeably softer, almost like boxed cake instead of diner batter. And then there's the texture. Longtime customers have noticed that the edges are no longer crisp, the middles are often gummy, and the stack cools down quicker than it used to. One former line cook explained that many locations started undercooking the pancakes slightly to keep them fluffy, but what really happens is that they don't finish setting. You get steam on the plate, not warmth. Sponge, not softness. IHOP's toppings have also become more elaborate. Fruity compotes, candy pieces, syrups that taste like dessert bars. Those extras distract from what the pancake itself is doing, or not doing. One customer said their strawberry shortcake pancake tasted more like whipped cream and sugar sauce than anything else. The pancake underneath was an afterthought. It's hard to notice the change if you haven't been paying attention. The plate still looks the same. The menu still calls it original buttermilk. But the flavor is thinner. The finish is bland. And once you eat it plain, no syrup, no topping, no butter, you start to feel what's missing. IHOP still gives you a full plate, still lets you linger in the booth. But the pancakes don't fill you the way they used to. Not just in your stomach, but in your memory. They're lighter, sure, but not in a good way. 2. Denny's. Denny's was never fancy, but it was always there. A place you went at 3 a.m. with your friends or 9 a.m. with your grandparents. The pancakes came hot, sometimes uneven, sometimes a little too brown, but they felt real. They soaked up syrup like a sponge, but they held together. They weren't perfect, but they were honest. And lately, that honesty feels like it's slipping. The pancakes today come out more uniform, more pale, more processed. That's not nostalgia, it's production. Former kitchen staff say the mix has changed more than once in the last 10 years. Less buttermilk, more stabilizers. The kind of swap that doesn't show up on a menu but shows up in every bite. One cook put it simply, they used to feel like something you made on a griddle. Now they feel like something pressed onto one. Denny's also moved toward more frozen and refrigerated components, pre-made batters, pre-cut fruit, and pre-portioned toppings. That cuts down on prep time but also removes the little imperfections that made the food feel made for you. Pancakes that used to arrive in awkward stacks now sit neatly on the plate but taste identical no matter where you go. The golden brown crust is gone. The bounce in the middle, not the same. Even the syrup seems thinner. That's not by accident. Some locations dilute syrup slightly to make them last longer. Others just use lower quality bulk alternatives. You don't really notice until you try to eat the pancake without drowning it. Then it becomes clear there's no richness, no base, just starch holding shape. Denny's still feels familiar. The booths are still sticky in that oddly comforting way. The coffee is still burnt but refillable. But the pancakes? They've gone quiet. Not in look, but in soul. What used to feel warm and heavy and worth the wait now cools too quickly, cuts too softly, and disappears from memory the moment you're done. 3. Cracker Barrel. Cracker Barrel has always marketed itself as comfort on a plate. Rocking chairs out front, country music humming low, biscuits in a basket, and somewhere in the middle, pancakes, big, fluffy, butter-soaked, and a little too large for the plate they came on. They were messy, golden, and filling in that way only a Southern breakfast can be. But recently, even Cracker Barrel's pancakes have started to feel less like tradition and more like routine. It starts with the texture. They used to have weight, a kind of thickness that said these were made from scratch, poured and flipped by hand. Now they're lighter, airier, and suspiciously perfect in shape. Former back of house staff say the pancake mix changed to a more shelf stable base. It saves time, but it also cuts flavor. The tang of buttermilk is gone, the soft crackle around the edge is gone too. Cracker Barrel pancakes now often come out looking the same no matter where you go. That used to be a point of pride, regional consistency, but customers say they don't feel the same anymore. The warmth disappears fast, the interior stays wet, and the chew is more foam than grain. One former cook admitted they started using pre-measured scoops and a timer instead of judging doneness by sight. It wasn't about how it looked, it was about hitting the window. Then there's the butter. It used to be real, soft, melty, and just enough to soak into the pancake's top layer. Now it's whipped, portioned, and mostly air. The syrup is still served warm, but it's so sweet that you almost don't notice the pancake beneath it. And maybe that's the idea. Cracker Barrel's pancakes still look like comfort, but the comfort doesn't go all the way down. It stays on the surface, fluffy, sweet, and easy to slice. But when the plate is empty, there's not much left to remember. 4. Bob Evans. Bob Evans has always leaned into the image of real food, made the right way. Farmhouse breakfasts, thick-cut bacon, gravy that doesn't pretend to be healthy. And their pancakes used to be part of that promise. Fluffy, golden, and heavy in a good way. Not just filler, but a reason to come in. But lately, what lands on the plate doesn't feel like something made in a kitchen. It feels like something managed. The first thing that's changed is the flavor. There used to be a mild tang, just enough buttermilk to stand out under syrup. Now it's sweet from the start, and not in a comforting way. One regular said it reminded them of hotel buffet pancakes, but slightly warmer. Former employees say that the mix, once prepped in-house daily, is now delivered in bulk and pre-mixed off-site. That means less variation, less freshness, and a texture that feels almost powdered. You can taste the uniformity. Every pancake has the same bounce, the same pale edges, and the same spongy middle that soaks up syrup, but never gets that crisp outer layer. That's no accident. One former cook shared that the griddle settings were standardized across locations down to the second. You weren't cooking, you were completing a step. Flip when the bubble's slow. Serve in stacks of 2 or 3. Move on. Even the toppings feel thinner. Butter that spreads too easily to be real. Syrup that cools faster than the pancakes themselves. It's not that the food is bad, it's that it feels distant, like something made miles away then dropped into a routine. There's no mark of the cook, no sense that anything was tasted before it hit the plate. And the portion size, once generous, now feels carefully measured. Pancakes that used to hang over the edge of the plate now stop short. Customers have noticed. One diner pointed out that the stack used to be a meal. Now it's a base for the rest of the combo, eggs, meat, sides, because the pancakes alone aren't enough. Bob Evans still talks like a place that does breakfast right. But the plate says something else, and if you remember how it used to taste, it's hard to untaste what's missing now. If you've ever taken a bite of a pancake and felt like the warmth stopped at the surface, leave a like, share your memory in the comments, and subscribe to the hidden menu. Because not every stack tells the whole story. 5. Perkins. Perkins isn't as loud as some of the other breakfast chains. It doesn't have the syrup rack on every table or the late-night energy of a 24-hour diner. But for years it offered solid, reliable pancakes, the kind you'd get after a long drive or during a Sunday morning lull. They weren't flashy, but they were warm, golden, and oddly satisfying. Until they weren't. Today, the pancakes come out thinner, flatter, and a little too perfect. Former servers and cooks say that's because the recipe has changed more than once in the last decade. Some locations now use pre-mixed batter that arrives frozen, thawed in bulk, and portioned with measuring cups to control food costs. That's great for the bottom line, not so much for texture or taste. One former kitchen worker said, "You don't whisk it, you don't check consistency, you just pour." That means no adjustments for humidity, griddle temperature, or freshness of ingredients. And you can taste that lack of attention. The edges never quite crisp. The centers stay pale, and the whole stack cools off before you finish the second bite. Even the smell has changed. Perkins pancakes used to have that unmistakable hot butter griddle sugar scent that hits you the second the plate lands. Now it's milder, faint, like something reheated, not freshly flipped. Syrup and butter help, of course, but they also do most of the work. One regular said they started ordering fruit toppings just to bring flavor back into the meal. Strawberries, blueberries, caramel drizzle, anything to distract from the pancake itself. And that speaks volumes. When you need to cover the thing that used to be the highlight, something's gone quiet. Perkins still tries. The plates are clean, the portions are decent, the booths are soft. But the pancakes don't feel like part of the heart of the place anymore. They feel like a placeholder for what used to be worth showing up early for. 6. Village Inn. Village Inn has always felt like one of those off-the-map places that only certain people know. A step quieter than the big chains, a little older, a little slower. But their breakfast had a kind of charm. No pressure, no rush, just big plates and hot coffee. And their pancakes? They weren't famous, but they were comforting. The kind of thing you didn't think too hard about. Until you had to. The first bite used to carry a little bit of everything: salt, butter, a hint of tang. Now it's mostly bland. One customer said their last order tasted like warm flour and syrup. The pancakes still look golden and stacked tall, but the taste is faint. The chew is too even. And the edges, once craggy and crisp from a hot griddle, now come out smooth and a little rubbery. Former cooks say the batter used to be made fresh every shift. But lately, most locations receive it pre-mixed and cold, sometimes even in sealed bags with expiration dates printed across the top. It's designed to last, not to impress. And when you're pouring from a jug instead of folding batter in a bowl, something subtle disappears. The griddles themselves aren't helping. One former employee said that worn-out equipment meant cooks couldn't control heat properly, so pancakes were often cooked too fast or too slow, undercooked in the middle, overbrowned on the bottom. But since they looked fine on the plate, nobody said anything. And if you order a side of pancakes with your meal, odds are it came from a batch made earlier and reheated to save time. That's part of the system now. Speed over care. Village Inn still has a certain kind of warmth. The booths are still tucked away. The servers still bring the coffee before you ask. But the pancakes? They're just going through the motions. And when the thing that used to make you feel grounded starts to taste like it was made without thinking, you start to feel the difference more than you expected. 7. Waffle House. Waffle House is a strange case. Known more for their waffles, sure, but the pancakes are on the menu, and for years they were exactly what you expected. Hot, heavy, slightly sweet, and served on a plate that looked like it had seen its share of 3 a.m. stories. Waffle House never tried to be perfect. That was the point. But lately, even here, the pancakes have started to feel like they're following a script instead of being part of the story. The texture used to be thick and slightly uneven, like someone actually poured batter on a hot griddle and let it cook just a second too long. That extra second gave it a golden crust, the kind you could tap with a fork. Now they come out too smooth, too soft, and too identical. Former grill workers say some locations began pre-portioning batter and setting timers to make sure cooks stay consistent. Less waste, less guesswork, one said, but also less personality. The flavor's flatter too. What used to have a little salt and butter baked in now leans on syrup to do all the work. A plain bite is just that. Plain. And while Waffle House never claimed to be gourmet, their pancakes used to be warm in a way you could taste. That warmth now comes more from the plate than the food. And when they get busy, and they always do, the pancakes are the first thing to slip. Undercooked centers. Cool stacks served too fast. One former server said the goal was always to keep the grill clear, not to make sure the batter had enough time. That means your pancakes might look right, but bite wrong. Waffle House still feels like an experience. The people, the rhythm, the open kitchen, it's all there. But if you're ordering pancakes expecting something that sticks with you, you might leave feeling a little more hollow than full. 8. Snooze Eatery. Snooze Eatery brands itself differently. Trendy, modern, full of seasonal menus and coffee from local roasters. Their pancakes are upscale, lavender-infused syrups, pineapple upside-down stacks, mascarpone toppings, and drizzled sauces with names longer than most cookbooks. But behind the presentation, something simpler has quietly faded. The core of it, the pancake itself, doesn't always hold up. The first bite often tastes like dessert. Sweet, yes, complex maybe, but not familiar. Former line cooks say the batters are prepped in large batches early in the morning, stored cold, and pulled out shift by shift. "We whisk, but we don't taste," one said. "We trust the recipe." And the recipe is designed for flair, not foundation. Snooze pancakes look beautiful on the plate, but once you get through the whipped cream, fruit, and garnish, the texture underneath is often dense or undercooked. Some regulars have called them cake on the outside, mush in the middle. That's a result of thick batters poured deep on the griddle and rushed for time during busy brunch hours. The edges set, the middle lags behind. And while the flavors sound exciting, sweet potato, lemon poppy seed, peanut butter cup, they often rely on toppings to carry the profile. One diner shared that when they scraped the syrup off just to try the pancake, it tasted like bland flour with a hint of sugar. That's the risk with complexity. Sometimes it hides what's missing. Snooze still draws a crowd, still posts to Instagram, still plates their pancakes with style. But for those looking past the garnish, those chasing the old feeling of a warm, satisfying bite of batter, butter, and not much else, what's left doesn't always stick. You finish the plate, you nod at the flavor, and you leave wondering why it didn't fill you the way it was supposed to. Pancakes used to be the pause button. A plate of something warm, something made without rush, something that let you sit still for a moment and feel full in more ways than one. Whether they came at sunrise or just before the day ended, pancakes held a kind of quiet place in the middle of all the noise. They didn't need to be perfect, just honest, just enough. But now even that feels like it's changing. Across chains, the pancake has become something else, an image on a menu, a shape in a combo meal, a base for toppings that carry the real flavor. The batter is prepped off-site. The griddle is managed by timers. The stacks are identical in ways that food rarely is when it's made with care. And it's not just about texture or taste. It's about what's been taken out and what's been added back in to cover the gaps. The butter is whipped. The syrup is thinner. The pancakes themselves are lighter. Not in calories, but in presence. They don't sit in your memory the way they used to. They don't feel made for you, just made. The reasons are obvious. Efficiency, speed, cost. Chains have to move fast and scale big, and that means real batter becomes powder. That means hot griddles become warm presses. That means your short stack gets built for a photograph, not for a bite. Most people won't notice, or if they do, they won't say anything, because the food still looks right, it still smells close enough. It still fills the plate, if not the moment. But every now and then, someone takes a bite and pauses. Not because it's bad, but because it doesn't feel like what it used to be. You remember the weight of the fork, the smell of butter hitting a hot skillet, the slow drip of syrup pooling at the edge of the plate. Those little details don't show up on menus or receipts, but they're the ones that linger. So maybe it's not just the pancakes that changed. Maybe it's what we stopped asking for. Maybe we got used to the shortcuts. Maybe we let good enough stretch too far. But even if the old pancakes are gone, the memory isn't. And that memory of real batter, slow flips, and stacked warmth is still worth chasing. If any of that rings true, if you've ever taken a bite and felt something small was missing, leave a like, share your story in the comments, and subscribe to the hidden menu because sometimes the softest foods carry the loudest changes. And remember, the truth is not always on the menu.